Now, when we started approaching the bottom of the hill, I figured it was time to start to slow down. I started by braking and then successfully double clutch downshifted from fourth gear to third gear. I continued braking. Now, the max speed for second gear is 14 miles an hour, but I think when I went into second, I shifted a little early. I was still going a little fast. I was just starting to get worried and needed to downshift, and I don't like relying on the brakes. I double clutch downshifted, but when I let out the clutch the second time, the truck backfired loudly. It scared my mom and the dog in the trailing car. I was kind of nervous about it, and my nephew, well, you heard his reaction. My mom said she thought she saw flames coming out the exhaust, but I couldn't see any on the video going frame by frame, but there was a large cloud of smoke. She was surprised when I kept going, but I kept going because it seemed fine, and I figured I didn't want to stop if I didn't have to until I got it home. The truck seemed alright driving past the farm and the quarries, but I thought there was still something wrong, so I didn't want to take a side trip to visit a friend. I just wanted to get home. I was also nervous turning onto my road because I was worried about stalling in that intersection. The key is not to shift in the intersection. Select the right gear before and wait until you are through to change that. Of course, I thought it was running well enough to take a lap around the field because I was home and I was feeling more confident, but we'll talk about that in a minute. When I pulled into the field, I stopped and it stalled. I should have taken that as a sign, but I kept going because everything seemed fine, even when stopping in the field until it was time to exit.
For?
It's a power outlet, I think. Pretty sure.
Why can't we go that way on the bumpy?
Huh. Because something's wrong with this. What did I do? Run out of gas? When pulling to the edge of the field, the truck died suddenly. This time there was nothing I did that could have caused the truck to stall. I had the clutch in and I was just coasting to a stop. The first thing I did was try to restart the truck. I used the same technique I always do, but it did not even try to start. My first thought, after looking at the temp gauge showing the normal range, maybe I was low on gas, and if the fuel had shifted. So I got out and checked, but I had plenty of gas. When I tried to restart it the second time, the temp gauge jumped to the top when I turned on the ignition. Okay, hop in. Hurry up and get in. If this thing starts, it's going straight back.
And staying there for
Oh boy, that temp gauge. That led me to the idea that it was overheating. So I brought buckets of water from the pond to cool it down. I noticed that none of the parts besides the exhaust headers were hot enough to boil, so they're all under 212 degrees Fahrenheit. That result was interesting because the temp gauge showed 260 at one point, although after that point it came back down and it kept showing normal readings. After 20 gallons of water and 4 hours of sitting, I finally thought I had the truck cooled off. I was able to start it after some fighting, and it did not want to idle the whole way back to the house. Because I thought I was dealing with a cooling issue, and because I was in the middle of the Cobalt build and needed to check the cooling system after I replaced the radiator and thermostat, I bought an important piece of test equipment, an infrared thermometer. This can accurately measure the temperatures of surfaces without touching them, and allowing me to test cooling systems. I thought the thermostat was bad, and I wasn't sure if the temp gauge or sending unit were bad as well, based on that sudden fluctuation once, but normal readings when I thought overheating was the problem. So I drove my truck about a mile down the road to visit a friend. It started out feeling pretty good, but by the time we got down there, it was once again having trouble idling. But the temp gauge once again showed normal. I had trouble starting it after talking with my friend, and it had trouble idling at stop signs on the way back home. When I was at this friend's house, I recorded the temperatures at several points on and around the engine and radiator. I repeated the measurements when I returned home, and through that, I learned that coolant was flowing from the engine to the radiator, through the radiator hoses, and all the coolant in the system was the same temperature as the engine block, and it was all the same temperature that the temp gauge showed, the same that the thermostat is supposed to be fully opened. The only irregularity I may have found was that the exhaust headers were over 500 degrees Fahrenheit. I don't know if that is normal, but it is not part of the engine that is cooled. The only thing I could think of is that if the carburetor intake, which is above the exhaust headers, gets too warm, it may cause a poor idle, but I wasn't really convinced. It wasn't until I started reviewing the footage that I started to realize it sounds more like a cylinder misfire than anything else. That is my current thinking, and the next time I work on the truck, I will be pulling the spark plugs to try and get a better idea of what's going on in there.